What are the outstanding cases that are high profile? Presumably there are tens, if not hundreds of cases there, but there are some very high profile ones.
There's some we're very much focused on. One is of Deutsche Bank, and it involves mirror trades that were conducted to move money out of Russia. And that has been long going, and we're eager to see a conclusion to that one. The regulators have already finished that one up. There's also a case involving Fox News, and that involves some harassment charges and whether the company had disclosed everything appropriately in those cases. And both of those are very much high profile, along with some including like Valiant Pharmaceuticals, which is very much in the limelight.
Right, and just to tie that up, the deputy who takes over, does he continue those cases in the same vein, or can he have some, some kind of influence over the outcome?
Certainly could. Jun Kim is a career prosecutor. He's very close with Preet. I don't think you'll see any daylight between what he was doing and what Preet was doing. The bigger question is who is going to be the permanent replacement, and that will be somebody very quickly, and that will be somebody very different.
Kerry, what's the reaction on Wall Street? Is it rubbing its hands with glee?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Wall Street feared Preet, but, a lot of the big Wall Street cases, particularly the ones with the billion-dollar fines, came out of Maine justice. I mean, Preet had his hands in a little bit. I mean, his specialty was really insider trading, where he was able to get quite a bit of convictions on that. He had a bit of a setback with that last year with a court ruling that kind of degraded the ability to convict certain types of insider trading cases. So, I mean, not necessarily. Preet was pretty well liked. I mean, Wall Street didn't love him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy that he's leaving.
Now, he did have some successes in his world. I'm not sure Wall Street or certain aspects of Wall Street would have considered them successes, but there was one sort of black mark on his record, I guess, in terms of enforcement, and that was that nobody actually ever went to jail for the financial crisis.
Well, you could argue that for pretty much every U.S. attorney in the country. I mean, those cases were at various, places, and I don't think there's a prosecutor in the federal government that was working on those cases that would say that they didn't try very hard to get those convictions. They were difficult cases, and obviously what we were dealing with at that time was very complicated and confusing, and nobody's really sure what crimes were committed at that point.
Yeah, Winnie, who's going to replace him?
Oh, that's a good question. The name that's been circulated the most is Mark McCasey. He is son of a former Attorney General, Mike McCasey, and he's very, very close to Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, who has been an advisor to Trump, and his name has come up repeatedly. But an interesting thing has arisen, which is there's a Fox News investigation going on, and McCasey was a lawyer to Ailes, so he would be conflicted out, presumably, and might have to recuse himself. So another idea has been floated recently, which is that maybe McCasey might be in consideration for the Brooklyn office instead of Manhattan. And another name has come up as well. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to play out here, but certainly McCasey is in the mix and very much up for discussion.
Do Democrats have any kind of influence here?
A little, but not so much. If they were empowered, then presumably the senator from New York would be able to float a name, and that would be the way it would go. But that's not what's happening here. So it's going to be a Republican-controlled process.
Kerry, does this mean the likelihood of cases against Wall Street goes down in any way?
That is a big question that we've been trying to figure out since Sessions got appointed Attorney General. It's not really clear what types of cases that they're going to be going after and whether these are going to be a priority. Now, the types of cases that Preet prioritized, which is political corruption, insider trading, and, he also did a number of huge terrorism cases. Some of those could go and some of them could stay. I mean, obviously, the political corruption cases, you'll probably see a little drop down because that was kind of his crowning of his career, but it's tough to say whether or not the new administration is going to really care about these cases.
Kerry raised an interesting idea this morning. She suggested that with the mirror trades, for example, which has been handled out of the Southern District, it's also involved people in Maine justice.
Yeah, and so basically you could take some of these big Wall Street cases and you could basically yank them down to Washington, and then these offices would no longer have any power.
Who would make that decision?
Well, you would have people down in Maine justice under Sessions making those decisions.
Winnie, I mean, he said back in November that he was asked to stay. Obviously, things have changed. What happened between November and this weekend?
It's hard to say this with a straight face to some degree, but things have become more divisive. There was a point where Schumer and Trump were talking about working together, and Preet was one of Schumer's original lawyers, and Schumer had put his name in and made him in that job in the Manhattan district. But things had deteriorated to such a degree. Trump and Schumer had become at loggerheads. They'd become really angry. Schumer had been pushed by his supporters to really focus and go anti-Trump. Trump was doing the same thing. And then the wild card in all of this is the investigations that are continuing into influence around the campaign by Russia and potential contacts with Trump aides. That, too, has made Trump clearly very, very upset with the Justice Department as it's currently been working, and he wants to stop it.
He's only 49 years old. What might he do next? What could be the next chapter?
Well, this is always a big question with Preet. Obviously, a lot of people speculate that he's going to run for political office. He said in 2014 he absolutely had no interest in doing that now or ever. But he would actually be a pretty natural candidate for governor of New York, mayor of New York City. So there's a lot of people, I think, that are hoping that he goes down that path. But it will be interesting to see how he takes this firing and kind of turns it and uses it to the advantage of his career.
Yeah, Winnie, just to clarify how unusual it is for an attorney to say he was fired and not to have stepped down when he was asked to.
Very. Obviously, these are political appointees. Yes, there's a history of cleaning house when someone new comes in charge. In this case, because Trump had vowed to let him stay on, that was really surprising. And now everyone's asking the question, was he involved in anything involving any of the Trump associates that might have prevented him from resigning? Was he refusing to resign out of principle over existing investigations? He tweeted over the weekend, "I know how the Moreland Commission feels now." And of course, he's referring to the group that was investigating Cuomo. So we don't really know whether more will be coming forward. People have been asking me, will he be called to testify before Congress? I don't know.